Hi guys, I'm Mike. This is F1 Fanatics, and this is our live qualifying reaction. And a big congratulations to Valtteri Bottas, who has secured pole position at the US Grand Prix 2019. Not many surprises in this qualifying. I suppose the only qualifying came in the last section of it, with Valtteri Bottas securing it, where it looked like it would be a fight between Verstappen, Vettel, and Hamilton in the Mercedes, not the Mercedes of Valtteri Bottas. As usual, it is me on camera, and Ash will be in the comments with you guys. So if you are watching and wanting to ask questions, and I don't notice it at the time, Ashley will be answering your questions there. So what we will do in this qualifying live reaction is I will go through from 20 to 1 on the grid, reacting to there, my general thoughts of qualifying going into the race tomorrow. Then we will have a Q&A section of the live reaction where you guys can ask your comments in the section below, and me and Ash will answer them there. But yeah, guys, let's get into that rundown of qualifying. So in P20 was Robert Kubica, a familiar position for the Williams driver, and George Russell was quite funny in the interview afterwards, because he was talking about it was funny how cars differ from track to track in terms of how they're getting on, and he went, but Williams haven't really differed in performance in any track. They've just been dead last pretty much everywhere. So Robert Kubica was in P20. In P19 was Sergio Perez. And for Sergio Perez, he had in, what was it, FP2 yesterday, he missed the weigh-in, and that meant that he was going to be starting from the pit lane. So Racing Point took the advantage to replace his engine, his MGU-K, his MGU-H, and I think that's all that they replaced. Ash will confirm if anything else got replaced. But basically, they were like, he's starting from the pit lane, we might as well replace everything else. So he's P19. Obviously, he wasn't going to take qualifying too seriously. So yeah, doesn't really matter for him. He starts from the pit lane regardless. George Russell in P19. Well, sorry, P18, but he probably will start in P19 with obviously Perez starting from the pits. Again, Williams' performance wasn't really there. Couldn't really say much about George Russell there. And then the two Alphas, who also their performance has been struggling since they pretty much confirmed P8 in the Constructors. Their performance has kind of dropped off a cliff. Kimi Raikkonen again being out-qualified by his rookie teammate Giovinazzi, who has had a very good second half of the season. Yeah, not great performance for the Alphas, and I'm sure Kimi Raikkonen will not be happy with that performance. Giovinazzi probably will be like, the car's not good enough. Fair enough. So these were your Q1 guys who went out. Then we went into Q2, and the first driver out in Q2 was Romain Grosjean in P15. The Haas looked like it showed a little bit of pace. Hey, Mark. Mark from Beyond the Grandstand just joined in the comments there. Yeah, Haas with Romain Grosjean, he was struggling for pace, but with Kevin Magnussen, he went 7th quickest in Q1. So it looked like they had potential for pace, and he was probably going to be their best shot in qualifying for Q3. But obviously with his spin in FP2, didn't necessarily get the greatest of runs. Grosjean, I think, was struggling here at the Grand Prix and struggling with the car. So P15 for him. Lance Stroll out of Q1, so that's positive for him, but not much better. Hi, Haley, in the comments there. Not much better for Lance Stroll, but I think probably for him, any performance that he gets out of Q1 is progress. He still needs to keep pushing on to improve his qualifying. That is his main point to improve on in 2020. Daniel Kvyat was in P13. Struggled to be competitive with his teammate Pierre Gasly all weekend, and I think that shows in his qualifying position. But obviously, going out in Q2 does allow him to have that option of tyres, so his pit strategy may differ from Pierre Gasly, and he can still have a strong race. P12 was Kevin Magnussen. Pretty strong performance for the Haas driver there, and they need a strong performance here probably in their home Grand Prix, with obviously, I think Grosjean retired last year and Kevin Magnussen was disqualified for, I think his fuel was too low at the end of last year's race. So that wasn't great for him. P11 was Nico Hulkenberg, again out-qualified by his teammate Daniel Ricciardo, not managing to get his Renault into Q3, which is probably frustrating for him. He was picked by going into Q3, that driver Pierre Gasly. So yeah, like I said, had his advantage over teammate Kvyat. He's been a very strong performer in the Toro Rosso all second half of the season. It's like I keep saying, it's more like the Pierre Gasly we saw last year rather than the Pierre Gasly that we saw at Red Bull in the first half of the season. In P9, we have Daniel Ricciardo, a good qualifying by the Renault driver. Obviously, Renault have had struggles in qualifying of late, mostly going out in Q2. So to get into Q3, and especially for Daniel Ricciardo, who has been the better driver out of the Renault drivers, is certainly really good positive for the race. And obviously, hopefully, if it's not like a Mexico situation where qualifying in Q3 actually hindered you if you're a midfield team, he can have a strong race again tomorrow. Lando Norris, big surprise for him was he topped the charts in Q1. He was fastest in Q1, but he actually qualifies in P8 behind teammate Carlos Sainz, which means Carlos Sainz now takes the advantage in the head-to-head between him and Lando Norris, which obviously be pleasing. They're quite rival against each other, so that was very good for Carlos Sainz. But yeah, both McLarens looked really quick this weekend, and again, I fully expect them to finish better than the rest. And looking by that qualifying, I'm fully expecting Carlos Sainz to return to his resident position of best of the rest. In P6, Alexander Albon topped Q2, but obviously that was a little bit deceiving because most of the top 6 runners were running their fast times on a medium tyre, so that they could obviously then go into the race on that medium compound and change a little different strategy. But Albon did his time on the soft, so top there, but wasn't able really to compete with the rest of the top 6. I think he was half a second off Valtteri's time in the end, and there was about 0.3 of a second between him and Albon as well. So not great for Alex Albon there, really. Lewis Hamilton in P5, probably the real shock. Really couldn't get the first lap, obviously wasn't great. He's been moaning about the bumps in the track all weekend. I have no idea whether that kind of played into his qualifying time. But yeah, not a great position for him to finish, but he's going to have to pretty much, I'll come on to it, not finish the race for him not to win the title. So P5 isn't necessarily the worst for Lewis Hamilton. Probably stays away from the drama that will be going into turn 1 out that top group. P4 is Charles Leclerc. Again, not quicker than Sebastian Vettel. For me, since Sebastian Vettel has got that more downforce on the Ferrari, which is when he can trust the car going into the corners, he looks a much better driver. He has been beating and looking the better driver from his rookie teammate. Well, not rookie teammate. He was a rookie last year, but rookie in the Ferrari, let's say. His junior teammate, Charles Leclerc. So yeah, not been quite the dominant force Leclerc was. So I think a little bit more down to earth, obviously, after the highs of Monza, where he obviously won for Ferrari. In P3 was Max Verstappen. He was looking good. He was looking quick all weekend here, but he wasn't able to piece together a last lap or better Valtteri Bottas's time, but still a strong position starting at the top of that second row position. He certainly will be challenging for the race win because he is always good here at the US Grand Prix. Sebastian Vettel missing out by 1,000th of a second to Valtteri Bottas, so very close, and again keeps up his consistent performance of qualifying on the top row recently. Very good by Sebastian Vettel. Yeah, it'd be interesting to see how he goes. Will he be like Kimi Raikkonen from P2 last year, who was able to get the advantage ahead of Lewis Hamilton and secure the race victory? And then back to it, P1, Valtteri Bottas, fantastic performance. Going into this weekend, Valtteri Bottas needed to win and hoped that Lewis Hamilton finished 9th without a fastest lap or lower, which obviously is going to be incredibly difficult for him. But all he can do is win the race, and by putting himself on pole position, he's given himself the best chance to do that. So yeah, you can't really ask much more from Valtteri Bottas, but all you can say is it's probably too little too late to rein in Lewis Hamilton from being a 6-time world champion. So now on to general thoughts of qualifying. Like I said pretty much at the start, no real surprises. The only real surprise was with a Mercedes on pole that it was not Lewis Hamilton on pole, it was Valtteri Bottas, and Ferrari weren't able to secure their 7th successive pole, or 7th pole of the season. So yeah, going in terms of permutations, looking into the race, you're probably looking at Hamilton retirement is the only thing that can probably make something spicy at the top of the field. Obviously, Max Verstappen, frustrated from last week. I really think Mexico was a race that he could have won. But yeah, so he'll be desperate to kind of try and win this weekend. So I think he's one to watch. Sebastian Vettel been in very good form recently. I imagine him to probably secure another podium position. Be interesting to see whether it's first, second, or third. And Valtteri Bottas, you know what? I'm going to back him for the win here. I think Valtteri Bottas will win the US Grand Prix, but I think obviously Lewis Hamilton will secure the title, even starting from P5. I imagine he'll probably work his way onto the podium, and it will probably be a Mercedes 1 with Bottas, Vettel 2 with Vettel 2, and Lewis Hamilton P3. But yeah, that's my thoughts going into the race. McLaren's been best of the rest. Imagine Renault's to be probably one to watch from the back. Sergio Perez has been the man in form in the midfield, finished in the points in every race, except obviously for Singapore, where he retired with an engine problem, with a new engine problem. He shouldn't really what was I going to say? Sergio Perez should really be competing for the points. With an engine, new engine, he shouldn't really be retiring with any problems there. That's what I was trying to say. Anyway, Tara's getting involved in the comments there. So, guys, we'll now move on to the questions, getting your guys' thoughts from qualifying. So, again, fire away. What do we think of qualifying? Impressed by Valtteri's poles? Any questions? Sorry about the lighting, by the way. And one of the lights has gone out, so it's a little bit darker than usual. And it's late at night. So, yeah, generally isn't great. Ash expecting fireworks at the start. Reading in the comments there. Mark expecting 5 cars to go in. Katie reminding Ash that he thought it was 3, but Ash has seen how close qualifying was. Yeah, I think the US Grand Prix usually sets us up for a very exciting race. So fingers crossed, we're going to have an exciting battle between the top 3 constructors, because I think only Albon is really off the pace, and there was only 0.2 of a second. I think it was actually 2.5. Let me see, get it up there. I think it was 0.25 seconds of a lap separating the top guys. Okay, Mark has gone with his first bold prediction in honour of our, obviously, bold predictions that we do in our race previews, of that either only one Red Bull will finish or none of them will finish. So be interesting there. But like I said, guys, get involved, questions in the comments below, and I will be happy to answer them. What was I checking? I was checking what was the time difference between Hamilton and Bottas on pole. Just wait for the app to load up. And I'm also going to put Tara out, otherwise you're going to have lots of meowing through this live stream. And back. Bold prediction, Max to take out Hamilton and Vettel in turn 1 for not giving enough space. Right, guys, now you're getting crazy. Max is not Max has got to be due a good race at some point. Yeah, that's probably fair. His last good race was in Hungary, and he's had a torrid second half of the season. So, yeah, if he can somehow figure out how to get a race win tomorrow. Obviously, he came from he had a grid penalty last year, wasn't it? I'm convinced, and he managed to finish second within the race. So it was a fantastic race by Max Verstappen yesterday. So starting from P3 on the grid, he's certainly going to be in a really good position to go for the race win. Mark is promoting his Beyond the Bingo, guys. If you haven't checked out Beyond the Bingo on Beyond the Grandstand, it's a great little game, and Ashley has gone very safe this week. So he is looking at getting a bingo points from the race there. I think really in the midfield, obviously me and Ash were saying in the preview that we were really hoping to get some on-track action between Carlos Sainz, Daniel Ricciardo, and Lando Norris and Nico Hulkenberg. But looking at the Renault's pace in qualifying has always been worse compared to their race pace. So there's still a real possibility of that. But the McLarens were really quick in qualifying. Were you guys surprised by Lando Norris actually topping a qualifying session in a McLaren? That was very impressive. Still can't find how much of a difference was split between Lewis Hamilton and Valtteri Bottas at the top. If anyone can say that in the comments if they find that before me, please do say there. Do we think, actually, that's probably a big question for the group. Home Grand Prix, shown relatively good pace compared to recent Grand Prix. Do we think Haas can score some points tomorrow? That would be an interesting one. Ashley reckons that McLaren are going to end up in a race of their own, and for me, I kind of feel the same. McLaren's will be in a race of the plane. McLaren F1 0.25. Yeah, fair enough. Mark, that's it. Who's that? Motorsport Tube coming in. Yeah, I think that's fair enough, really, for McLaren. They've well and truly won fourth in the constructors for me. Of course, you think Haas can finish in the points, Katie. I'm going to guess that you think that Kevin Magnussen is going to be the top Haas finisher tomorrow. But yeah, back on McLaren, they've just been so incredible in their performance from last year to this year. Obviously, they came out and said that Alonso and Stoffel did a lot of development for the car last year, which obviously was fantastic for them going into this season. But it's really going to be interesting with those 2021 rules coming out, if they can make more positive steps and get closer to the third place constructor, if it's exactly the same this year with Red Bull being third. If they can get closer to Red Bull third, even get a podium next year, that'll put them in a really good position, I feel, for the 2021 rule changes. And yep, Katie confirming there that she reckons that Kevin Magnussen will be the leading Haas finisher. Gap between Bottas and Hamilton was 0.3. So yeah, 0.3 of a second splitting the top drivers is very close at the top there. And considering that the 0.3 was between the two Mercedes cars, the Ferraris and the Red Bull Max Verstappen in there certainly means it's going to be interesting. Alfa Romeo, it's really sorry to kind of see, because obviously Kimi was in a great position early season, and how Giovinazzi had started the second half of the season really well. It's a little disappointing to see their performance drop off so badly towards the end here. Lance Stroll, what do we reckon Lance Stroll getting into Q2 again? I mean, is he showing signs of improving in qualifying, or is he again basically in Q2 because someone got a grid penalty, i.e. this case his teammate, and there were two teams slower than him? So reason I've just laughed is I've just read Mark's comment of saying that the only way that Hards are scoring a point this weekend is if Roman Grosjean goes on Crashgate and decides to take out the McLarens, Renaults, and Toro Rossos in turn one. I mean, that would be a hell of a crash, and I'm pretty sure for that type of crash, Roman Grosjean would receive his second career pen, and then Twitter would go into meltdown. I mean, they were already getting on his back for his spin out in FP2, saying, "Why has Grosjean got a seat?" Willing to jump on his back at every opportunity, but don't doubt his ability to crash. I mean, I don't doubt Roman Grosjean's ability to crash, but come on, it's Haas's home Grand Prix. Can we have a little bit of positivity for Haas? I'm going to see if I can turn this light up a bit. Hopefully lighting is a little better there. Where do you think Perez will see as a good result? I think Perez has to see a points finish as a good result, doesn't he? Because the Racing Point has shown it's got natural pace. I mean, starting from the pit lane, it means that Sergio Perez, the master of tyre management, you saw that in Mexico again, another really good tyre management performance by Sergio Perez. I think you've got to look at him as going for a one-stop strategy. If obviously teams are going on two-stop strategy, but the tyres do seem to be holding up a lot better than what they did in Mexico. And obviously in Mexico, they were still able to do a one-stop. But yeah, probably hard medium compound combination for Perez, and Nico Hulkenberg and Pierre Gasly is probably the ones he's competing with. I think P10 is probably the best he can hope for. Who are the ones to watch? Katie, Haas are the ones to watch. Yeah, I mean, yeah, they are correct. Yes, they are from our bold predictions. What did I say? Bold predictions is, I mean, I was laughing with it with Stephen. It's so bad. Haas, obviously, last year, one of the new teams, the newest team into F1, were making great progress. And obviously, they finished fifth in the Constructors last year, were fighting for a long part of the season for Renault for fourth in the Constructors. And then this season has been so catastrophic on such a large scale that it's almost sad to see that we are making in our preview where quite ridiculous. It's just like stupid predictions. We're going, yeah, Haas, a bold prediction is a double points finish for them. I mean, it's really sad to kind of see that it has got to that stage, but they're probably another one that are hoping these 2021 regulations come in. They're a team that operate on a budget, and with the budget restrictions that are coming in and the costs that are refined, they're really going to be hoping that is a benefit to them. Joshua G, any top 10 drivers would win if they Mercedes go Daniel Ricciardo? I mean, Mark is certainly going to be happy with you, Josh, being an Australian himself and a Daniel Ricciardo fan. I don't know if you can really argue with that. The Mercedes is the best car on the grid, but the top drivers earn their way. That's why I think people are so keen for 2021 to make the cars more competitive and more closer to each other and allow following. So it will be interesting to see with how competitive these drivers are. Will we get someone who dominates F1 again like Lewis Hamilton? Yeah, Alpha for sure are in 2020 mode. They stopped development. That's probably why their performance has dropped through a cliff. But they'll still be frustrated with how far they are at the back. They'd still even be hoping that they'd be near points finishes and maybe even getting a slight points finish with it. But I suppose with nothing to fight for in 8th position in the Constructors, unless Haas can have a mammoth last 3 races and get some serious points, I really can't see Alpha missing that 8th position in Constructors. I suppose a really good battle this weekend is probably looking at Toro Rosso and Racing Point because that position for 6th. I think Renault are going to secure 5th fairly easy. And McLaren, like we said, have got 4th. But that is going to be a really interesting battle. Can Sergio Perez get in the points and close the gap again between the Toro Rossos and Racing Point? Or will Pierre Gasly get a strong points finish and extend the lead? I mean, really, they need Lance Stroll to have a strong race, being the one who's further up the field. And if he can compete for the points or at least finish ahead of, Daniel Kvyat, I mean, basically, yeah, Racing Point need points. So if they can get into the points with Lance Stroll or Sergio Perez ahead of Gasly or Kvyat, it makes that race a little bit interesting going into the last 2. But yeah, not anything too great there. Stroll to finish in the points, outscoring the Toro Rossos. Interesting prediction, Ash. He is a better performer on a Sunday, and he is in P14, which means he's a little bit closer to the point start than he usually is. We're going out in Q1. I suppose another really interesting one that probably makes the top of the field really interesting is that fight for 3rd place in the league is really interesting, and the fight for 6th place is interesting. So I think Leclerc, Vettel and Verstappen can all finish 3rd, and Gasly, Sainz and Albon can all finish 6th in the constructors. Motorsport Tube, I agree that Stroll has a lot to prove, but he is 20. He started F1 young and obviously skipped F3. Skipped F2, but then you can look at drivers like, I think Daniel Kvyat and Max Verstappen both skipped F2 and went straight into Formula 1. He is, and his qualifying performance is probably the worst driver on the grid in qualifying on a Saturday in what has been a reasonably competitive car at times in this second half of the season. So he still has a lot to prove. I'm not entirely sure whether he was overrated, because I'm not entirely sure there's too many people who rate him anyway. Is any other questions in the comments from you guys? Yeah, Mark, if anything, Stroll is underrated. Yeah, that's probably fair to the point I've just made. But yeah, guys, we'll leave it with, if there's any questions, we'll go through there. If there's no questions, then we'll round it up. I like how you corrected it's the second youngest podium finisher. Didn't someone jump on you on Twitter the other day, Mark, when you said that Lance Stroll was the youngest one? And it's Max Verstappen. Max Verstappen, isn't he? Or is it Charles Leclerc who's the youngest podium finisher? Oh, Alex said it. Okay, no problem at all. Oh, sorry, Mark. I'm sorry. I'm doubting your F1 ability. I apologise for that. So looks like probably Ashley, you got any questions? Katie, you got any questions? Where is the potential surprise tomorrow? The potential surprise tomorrow is probably that one we're talking about. If Lance Stroll gets in the points, would be a surprise for me from this position. A surprise for me would be if Daniel Ricciardo can beat the McLarens in the race. And the surprise would be if Lewis Hamilton has an engine failure and he doesn't win the championship tomorrow. Mark's question is opinion on Renault's restructure. Yeah, I mean, Pat Fry has proven he is a fantastic technical director within the sport. Obviously, he's previously been with Ferrari and McLaren. I think this is a really positive move by Renault. And with all the rumours with them not continuing or their future being up for debate, they're doing a lot of things that are suggesting that they're going to be in the sport beyond 2021. So I think it's a really good move. It'd be interesting to see. Yeah, I believe he was. Exactly, yeah. He was credited for a lot of the progress that McLaren have made this year. So he's got to be a positive input for Renault. Obviously, McLaren's aero package has been very good this year. Where Renault have struggled outside of their engine, obviously with reliability issue, has been their overall aero package. So yeah, it could be a real thing. Obviously, signing him, having Ocon on a long deal. I know Daniel Ricciardo is only to 2021, but if they make enough progress next year, I'm sure he'll be willing to kind of extend that contract. Obviously, Cyril is talking very positively about Renault's involvement in the sport. So yeah, I think it's a good move for them, and it means that Renault are excited by the 2021 rules and really trying to push on. Yeah, I didn't really ever foresee. I wouldn't have understood if Renault had left the sport in 2021, at least giving these rules a chance to see if it close things up on the grid, without without having a look. When they came back in 2015, the midway through a hybrid era where Mercedes were dominating, it wouldn't really make sense to come in 2015 and leave in 2021. But Renault have been known to make bizarre decisions at times. But probably when Flavio Briatore was in charge. Any other questions from the field? Any thoughts on the race? Any further thoughts on qualifying? If not, I think we've pretty much covered it all. Thank you guys for getting involved in the comments. It's good to kind of see the regulars of kind of Mark. Obviously, Ashley's in there because he's part of the channel. Katie, good to see you regularly in there. Good to see kind of some new faces in Joshua and Motorsport Tube as well. Thank you for coming in and watching there. And guys, hope you're looking forward to the race. What we will do is Ashley will be doing our race reaction tomorrow. So that will be out with you post-race tomorrow. And Monday will be driver ratings as per usual. And Tuesday will be the race review podcast where we look at the race incidents in a little bit more detail and look at the race as a whole. But guys, hope you've enjoyed that Quali Live reaction. Yeah, fairly standard qualifying. Wasn't anything spectacular. But yeah, we're still interested to see. Well done, Valtteri Bottas. Congratulations on pole. Can he convert the win? And will Lewis Hamilton not finish? We'll find out tomorrow. But for now, guys, you F1 fans, remember, keep racing.